Why you wouldn't last a day in a Rigelian mining colony, a sleep journey through breath, dust, and the forgotten depths beneath the stars. Good evening, traveler. I'm glad you're here. Tell me, how was your day? Was it quiet and kind, or maybe long and a little heavy? And what time is it now, where you are? Late? Perhaps past midnight? Or maybe just on the edge of nightfall when the world begins to slow down? Wherever you are, however you feel, you've arrived in just the right moment. Here, there's no rush, no pressure, just stillness. This space is for you to release, to drift, to remember. In a few breaths, we'll begin a journey, not through roads or skyways, but through the deeper folds of time and the quiet mysteries of the stars. So lie back, feel your weight, let your shoulders soften. The past is behind you, the future can wait. For now, there is only here, only now, only you, and the story that sleeps in the dark. But first, subscribe to our channel so you won't miss whenever we upload a sleep meditative storytelling journey. Hit the bell notification and also like. And now, let's begin. Welcome to KhrronoNaph, where time folds and stars remember. Close your eyes. Drift beyond the edge of now. Your journey begins in sleep. Why you wouldn't last a day in a Rigelian mining colony, a sleep journey through breath, dust, and the forgotten depths beneath the stars. Soft chimes echo in the dark between galaxies. Let the weight of your day begin to fall away. You've arrived at the edge of somewhere. Not quite a memory, not quite a dream. It is quiet here, yet vast. The air around you begins to shimmer, not from heat, but from resonance, as if time itself has slowed its heartbeat to match your breath. Tonight, we descend far beneath the stars into a world where sunlight never touched the ground, where air is traded like currency, where each step you take is a negotiation with gravity, and every breath is earned. You may have heard of Rigel, the blue supergiant that anchors Orion's knee in your Earth night sky, but few know what orbits it, and fewer still remember what lies beneath the surface of Rigel 6, a planet of iron bones and forgotten civilizations. This is not a story for the waking. This is a memory you've never had, but one your soul remembers well. Close your eyes. Let the hum of your breath match the pulse of distant machinery, and prepare to descend, not just through space, but into the quiet chambers of a life beneath stars. Why you wouldn't last a day in a Rigelian mining colony? Daily life immersion. You are there. You feel the dust in your lungs, the gravity pressing down. Imagine it. You wake not to sunlight, but to a recycled light pulse that flickers above your cot. The room is narrow. You can reach both walls with your elbows. A pipe hisses beside you. That's your oxygen allotment for the day. Pre-filtered through bioalgae, slightly warm, slightly metallic. You breathe it anyway, because there's no choice. You are 4 floors below the surface. The ceiling vibrates slightly, always. That's the mining arm, chewing rock above your sector. You've learned to sleep through it. You had to. Gravity on Rigel 6 is heavier than Earth, not crushing, but relentless. A quiet hand on your shoulders, a tug on your bones with every movement. You walk differently here, slower, wiser, measured. The suit they gave you is older than you are. Worn canvas polymers, lined with nanothread veins. It clings to you like old sweat. You check the seal, neck, wrists, ankles. Every miner knows someone who skipped that step once. They don't speak anymore. You step into the corridor. It smells like ozone, rust, and something faintly organic, like mushrooms growing in fear. There are no windows, only tunnels lined with soft glowing runes. Alien? Maybe, but now repurposed as power conduits, as light, as warning signs. You pass a mirror. You don't recognize yourself. Eyes sunken, cheeks hollow, breath steady for now, and then the siren hums, low, unfeeling. It's time. The transport tube jerks as it descends you toward the excavation level. Below, the mines stretch for kilometers, but they're not just rock and crystal. You've heard the rumors, whispers in the air ducts, voices that aren't voices, movements in blind corners. They say the tunnels were alive once, that the black crystal sings, that time itself bends in the deeper shafts. But none of that matters, because your task is simple. Dig all. Survive another shift. You put your gloved hand to the wall. It pulses back, softly. Not machine, not quite mineral. You are not alone down here, and yet you have never felt more forgotten. Let yourself breathe slowly now. The air may be thin, but your presence, it is heavy with memory. The rise and fall of Keth'raan, the alien labor leader, biography, event, a silent revolution, led by breath, not blades. There is a name they whisper between shifts, not loudly, not often, just a syllable, slipped beneath breath, shared behind masks. Keth'raan. You might assume he was a warrior, or a firebrand, but those things burn too fast in a place like this. Keth'raan was something else. He was quiet, deliberate, a rhythm within the silence. He was born in the depths, if such a word even applies. His people, the Shire, had long been absorbed into the labor caste after the technocrat accords, a binding contract between the upper orbitals and the subterranean colonies. Born without surname, without property, Keth'raan came into being within a mining creche, a communal pod warmed by repurposed reactor coils and woven fungus blankets. From his earliest cycles, he learned the breath patterns, form of meditation used by the elders, not religious, not mystical, but necessary to endure long hours of chemical-laced air, to remain conscious during high radiation pulses, to regulate the inner pulse against panic and collapse. But he listened deeper. He noticed the shift in pressure before a tunnel collapsed. He sensed patterns in the crystal resonance, and, most notably, he discovered a way to communicate in silence, not with speech, not with signs, but with breath. Each inhale, each exhale, measured and modulated, became a code, a rebellion without words, a movement without sound. Through the minds, this breath language spread, a shared rhythm, a shared awareness. They could coordinate rest times, shift supplies secretly, redirect mining arms without technocrat oversight. without a single spoken word. This silent unity terrified the orbital elite. Sensors began recording synchronized pulses across mining sectors. Efficiency inexplicably rose, but so did resistance. One night, if night even applies, in a place without sun, Keth'raan disappeared. No struggle, no alarm, just gone. Some say he was taken, others that he ascended, that his breath dissolved into the Rigelian core, and now pulses through every black crystal vein. Miners still hum his rhythm when machines fail. They breathe his pattern before entering unstable shafts. They say if you exhale in just the right tone, you can feel him listening. Not a hero, not a savior, just a breath in the dark that reminded the forgotten that they were still alive. Let that rhythm guide you. Now, breathe in, hold, exhale. Keth'raan would say that silence can't be broken if it becomes your language, and so his name remains unspoken, but it is known. The black crystal mines of Rigel 6 whispers in stone, and a history carved in shadows. Imagine yourself deep within the veins of Rigel 6, deeper than the work shafts, past the active tunnels. Below, even the zones marked unsuitable for habitation. There is where the black crystal begins. These are not the glittering gems harvested for export or energy conversion. No, these are older, rooted, alive, in a way that no mining schematic could predict. They form smooth, interlocking structures that mimic neural lattices, webs of glossy black filaments embedded into the crust like synapses across a forgotten brain. When struck with the slightest force, a boot, a tool, a breath too strong, they resonate. Not a tone, not quite, a whisper, faint, harmonic, as if the crystal is remembering something, echoing what has been. Long ago, a forbidden expedition composed of 5 orbital scholars and 2 unauthorized miners dared to remain in the lower tunnels for 9 rotation cycles. What they found was never fully released. Only fragments leaked into surface myth. A hollow cavern, walls etched in spirals, not made by hand, but grown, etched by thermal memory, within the crystal structure itself, and in the center, a fossil, not of bone, but of shape, a bipedal form, roughly humanoid, yet subtly wrong. Its limbs too long, its torso marked by layered plates, and where the face should be, only a void, mirrored like obsidian. It wasn't carved, it had grown into the crystal. Some say this is an ancient species, a pre-Rigelian consciousness that evolved not through biology, but through mineral memory, entities that live as encoded vibration, transmitting thought not with words or neural impulses, but through harmonic presence. They were not destroyed, only slowed, folded into the lattice of Rigel's crust. And now, the mining threatens to awaken the frequency that holds their rest. This theory, of course, is not accepted by the orbital technocracy. The official logs state the lower mines are sealed due to geological instability and magnetic irregularities. But the miners, they know better. They feel it in their teeth, in the back of their skulls, where the helmets don't quite fit. a low ache that hums in rhythm with the black veins. Some have returned from forbidden sectors, changed, quiet, but always listening, their breath syncopated, as if harmonizing with something beyond earshot. It is said the black crystal does not reflect light, it reflects consciousness, that if you stare long enough, you begin to see not your face, but your other selves, versions of you that might have lived, or might still live, in a different branch of the lattice, and perhaps in sleep, when your own thoughts grow still, you can hear them too, whispers, not in a voice, but in resonance. The past is not buried here, it is preserved, listening, waiting, life among the technocrats of upper orbit, floating cities of silence, code, and curated serenity. Now, rise. Let the dust and gravity of the minds fall away. Let your body become lighter, your breath slower. Ascend, softly, silently, into the stratosphere, where cities float in controlled orbits above Rigel 6. The technocrats do not walk. They glide through corridors wrapped in light, their robes woven from memory cloth, fabric embedded with adaptive circuits that respond to biometric fluctuations. The world they inhabit is engineered serenity. No noise, no scent, no uncontrolled temperature shifts. Even the air is filtered through bioharmonic chambers, tuned to induce calm compliance. It is a world built not for comfort, but for control, and above all, for separation. While the miners below labor in rhythm with collapsing geology, the technocrats live on platforms suspended in the ionosphere. Their windows do not look down. They look inward, into simulated oracles, coded mythologies, and fractal archives of planetary memory, carefully curated by quantum historians. Children born into orbit are rarely touched by soil. Instead, they are imprinted, cognitively aligned with their chosen discipline. By age 3, one becomes a data visionary, another a silence architect, a third, perhaps, a dream cartographer, mapping the subconscious patterns of sleeping Rigelians for subtle societal course correction. Time is experienced differently here, not in sunrises or rotation cycles, but in updates, versions. The self is not defined by biology, but by its latest calibration. Meals are unnecessary. Nutrients are absorbed through skin via biomist diffusion, colorless, tasteless, odorless. There is no hunger, but also no fullness. This is life, in balance, engineered stasis, a culture of minimal entropy, and yet, sometimes a fracture. Once every few generations, a technocrat will descend, voluntarily, drawn not by duty, but by curiosity, or by dreams they cannot explain. They return changed. Eyes no longer aligned with the retinal grid, heartbeat uneven, their speech slower, heavier, as if they are dragging sound through gravity. Some never reintegrate. They leave the floating cities to join surface cults. Others vanish completely, disappearing into the caves, or beyond them, because beneath the clean silence of orbit, the black crystals still whisper, and somewhere inside even the most precise of beings, there remains a sliver of something unpredictable, a longing, a memory of imperfection, a sense that life, real life, is not meant to be curated, but felt. Cracked halos, the family structure of Rigel's surface, tribes where kinship is resonance, and dreams are inherited like bloodlines. Breathe in. You are no longer in orbit. You are beneath the surface now. Not deep in the mining sectors, but further out, along the edge of the salt plains, where old habitats still hum beneath silver dunes. Here, family is not just blood, it is frequency. Kinship is measured by the harmony of your voice, by the rhythm of your rest, and by the way your presence affects the surrounding field. You do not take a name at birth. You earn one after your first shared dream with your parent echo, a silent night where two minds drift into alignment, and the crystals beneath your bed emit a singular tone. That tone becomes your identifier. It is not written, it is sung. Some families live in sound domes, rounded shelters built from harmonized stone, designed to amplify emotional coherence. Others live communally in spiral chambers, each room tuned to different neural frequencies, one for rest, one for conflict resolution, one for shared trance. Arguments are rare. Disruption of harmony is not seen as a personal flaw, but as an environmental imbalance. When a child grows restless, the family gathers in stillness, not to speak, but to recalibrate. They sit in a circle, hands resting on warm earth, eyes closed, breathing in rhythm, and slowly the disturbance softens, the child sleeps. There are no schools. Instead, there are dream gatherings, weekly rituals, where young ones sleep beside elders while exposed to mineral harmonics. They awaken with stories not taught, but absorbed, imprinted through resonance. Discipline is never shouted. Correction comes in the form of silence or being asked to sleep alone for a night. To be exiled from the dream circle is considered the deepest wound. Yet even then, forgiveness is always offered on the next full cycle of the twin moons. Rituals of bonding are gentle, a touch of foreheads, breath shared through hollow reeds, songs composed not in words, but in tones that only the body understands. You may not understand this way of living, but to the surface Rigelians, it is the only truth they've ever known. And in this soft, patterned existence, a new kind of strength forms, not the strength of domination, but the quiet endurance of presence, of being fully here, together, like notes in a slow, eternal song, temples without gods, subtle faith among the Rigelians, exploring the spiritual architecture and inner rituals of a society that no longer names their deities, but still listens for them. Imagine yourself walking among glass dunes, their edges rounded smooth by thousands of silent storms. The wind here is not sharp. It carries tones, long, hollow notes that rise and fall like forgotten voices trying to return home. There are no statues here, no altars, no chants, and yet you feel the sacred everywhere. The Rigelians of the surface, tribes no longer speak of gods as beings. Not anymore. They speak instead of presence. The feeling that you are not alone, even in solitude. Their temples are not buildings. They are spaces of resonance, caves where the walls hum softly when you breathe, pools of liquid glass that ripple only at moonrise, staircases that descend not into stone, but into silence. Rituals are gentle, a hand placed over the heart, not in pledge, but in listening. They believe that within the body are gates to many worlds, each breath a corridor, each moment of stillness a doorway. Meditation is not practiced, it is lived. They sit in silence, not to escape thought, but to feel the vibrational memory of the land beneath them. For it is said, this world remembers everything. The Rigelians do not speak of sin, they speak of disharmony. When one's inner tone no longer aligns with the field, they do not fear death. To them, death is a retuning, the moment when the spirit changes keys and drifts back into the great harmonic lattice of the stars. They believe you're soulies, not something inside you, but something you borrow from the cosmos, from your ancestors, from the very dust of the planet itself. There is a myth that when one dies on Rigel, the crystals at the core of the planet absorb your final breath and encode it into light. And someday, millennia from now, your breath will shimmer again the auroras that dance over the polar skies. You are never gone, only repatterned, and so they live, not in worship, but in wonder, not in fear, but in quiet reverence for the invisible architecture that holds all things, even you, even now. When the silence broke, the moment of Rigelian awakening, how a quiet civilization stirred from darkness and remembered the stars. You are there, in the dim corridors of Rigel's underground past, a world where life had long been routine. Breath, labor, sleep, repeat. No clocks, only pulses. The rhythm of hydraulic machines, of filtered air, of hearts quietly surviving. For generations, the people of Rigel lived without sky. Their stories were short, their dreams even shorter. They did not speak of purpose, only of cycles. But slowly, something changed. No one remembers exactly when. Maybe it was the dream of a child who drew stars in the ash with a finger. Maybe it was the old woman who whispered songs not heard in centuries. Or maybe it was the crystals themselves, deep in the caverns, glowing faintly, vibrating in tones no ear could hear, but every cell could feel. They called it the stirring. It began in the breath. People found themselves inhaling slower, pausing longer, before exhaling, as if they were waiting for something. Then, in their sleep, they began to remember, not events, but feelings. Feelings that did not belong to a mining caste. Feelings that spoke of wide oceans, tall towers, bathed in light. Cities that once floated in the skies of another time. The archives were dust, but the memories were encoded in being. The people began to gather, not in rebellion, but in resonance. They formed circles of silence, sitting in perfect stillness for hours. They began to hum, not songs, but frequencies, as if tuning into a forgotten channel. And one day, it responded. In the minds of the old sector, a wall of black crystal began to shimmer, not visually, but emotionally. Anyone who stood before it felt a pulse inside their chest. Some cried without knowing why. Some laughed. Some simply sat down and placed their palms on the stone. The awakening had begun. They did not revolt. They remembered. They remembered they were not built for servitude, that they came from the stars, not just to dig beneath them, that they were once interstellar citizens, not subjects. The elite noticed the shift, but they misunderstood it. They thought it was illness. They called it the calm plague. They tried to isolate it, but the calm only grew. Those who caught it spoke less, listened more. Their eyes carried galaxies. In time, the miners began to walk differently, slower, as if gravity no longer applied in the same way. The awakening was not political. It was quantum. It happened in their blood. Their memories reactivated the light codes hidden in their DNA. Not all at once, but steadily. They began to dream in colors no one had names for. They began to hear songs, not in air, but in silence. And so the silence broke, not with noise, but with presence. The people of Rigel remembered not who they were told to be, but who they had always been. And for the first time in centuries, beneath the cold weight of dust and machines, someone looked up and truly saw the stars, celestial engineers, how the Rigelians became interstellar once more. Technology was no longer a tool. It was a companion, a memory, a bridge to the stars. Now imagine, the silence had settled, but it was no longer heavy. It had become alive. In the cities beneath Rigel's crust, machines that once roared in obedience now hummed in harmony. The people no longer worked on technology. They worked with it. The walls of their ancient mining tunnels were not torn down. They were transformed. Every surface, every pipe, every interface was touched with intention. The awakening had taught them that consciousness was not limited to biology. They began to rediscover what they had long forgotten. That thought could shape metal. That emotion could guide engineering. That memory could become architecture. They remembered how to build from the inside out. The first celestial seed ships were grown, not constructed, fused from harvested crystal and bio-light. The vessels responded to song, to breath, to focus. Each seed ship was not just a vehicle, it was an extension of its pilot's soul. The Rigelians learned to navigate not through stars alone, but through frequencies, through timelines, through dimensions not marked by space, but by a state of being. Their early voyages were not declared. No ceremonies, no launches, just quiet ascent. One by one, these ships, shaped like soft spirals of translucent metal, rose through the crevices of the underground vaults, gently piercing the upper sky like dreams rising from sleep. They did not rush. They did not conquer. They listened. Their journeys were not measured in speed, but in resonance. Wherever they traveled, they brought stillness to forgotten satellites, to hollowed moons, to planetary ruins once shaped by giants. And in every system, they left behind gardens, gardens of breath, of coded song, of quantum seeds that would one day awaken others as they had been awakened. The elite of upper orbit, once distant and cold, watched this quiet evolution with unease. They tried to replicate the seed ships. They failed, because what powered those vessels was not fuel or code, but alignment. the kind that could not be bought, only remembered. In time, some among the elite goes to descend, not in dominance, but in humility, to sit among those they once ignored, to listen, to still themselves, to breathe, and from this merging, a new Rigel was born, a civilization that no longer divided sky and stone, light and shadow, elite and laborer. Now they were simply travelers, interstellar but rooted, quantum but grounded. Their cities became living temples of memory. Their archives no longer held data, but dreams, and every newborn child was taught from their first breath, you are made of stars, but you are here to remember. The constellation temples and the Rigelian way of light, not gods, not myths, but memory patterns, inscribed across the stars. Imagine a sky not of chaos, but of precise intention. To the Rigelians, constellations were never just stars. They were living maps, resonant geometries embedded in the firmament. Each pattern, a story, each star, a memory node in the vast galactic mind. And so, as their civilization awakened, they began building what would become known as the constellation temples, not temples in the ancient human sense. There were no idols, no altars, no sacrifice. Instead, these were vast crystalline observatories, carved into the walls of sleeping cliffs, and floating on suspended platforms that hovered in silence over deep magnetic wells. Within each temple, you would find a single chamber, spherical and softly lit by bioluminescent filaments. The walls, they moved, ever so slowly, mirroring the rotation of the galaxies themselves. You would sit there, in the center, and above you, the projected lattice of constellations would shimmer into view. But these were not mere star maps. They pulsed with feeling. Each constellation was a vibration, an emotional frequency that the Rigelians had learned to translate into memory. They did not pray. They remembered. You see, to the awakened Rigelian, each soul was connected to a stellar lineage, a pattern of light and intention threaded across dimensions. When one sat beneath the constellation of Narethel, they remembered lives as bridge makers between worlds. Beneath Siretha, they recalled being healers of fractured timelines. Under Vorlun's crown, they felt their roles as architects of crystalline consciousness. It was not worship, it was realignment. Each temple acted like a tuning chamber, bringing the visitor back to their original resonance. And with every alignment, they left lighter, more whole, more lucid in dream, and clearer in waking purpose. These temples also served as quantum oracles. Through meditative stillness, the Rigelians could project their consciousness into distant sectors of the galaxy, not to invade, but to observe, to remember others, to listen. And in the silence, they heard other lights, other minds, reaching back, whispers across the stars. In the Rigelian way of light, truth was not told, it was felt. Truth had tone, texture, pulse, and above all, it had no ownership. You didn't believe the truth. You harmonized with it. Even young Rigelian children were taught to meditate in these temples, learning not to seek answers, but to dwell in stillness until answers found them. This gentle way, this spiritual science of resonance and memory, became the cornerstone of Rigelian society, and as the generations passed, a quiet certainty grew within them that they were not the center of the galaxy, but they were a mirror of it, that every soul was a star awaiting ignition, that the dark was not an enemy, but a necessary backdrop against which light could remember itself. The day the stars whispered the Rigelian message to Earth, it wasn't a transmission, it was a feeling, a ripple, a breath passed through the veil of sleep. Now, imagine a distant morning, not measured in light, but in quiet vibration. The stars did not blink. They sighed, and across the endless weave of space, through invisible rivers of time, a message was sent, but not in words, not in data. The Rigelians, now fully awakened, had reached a level of resonance that made speech unnecessary. They learned how to speak through presence, through symbols carried in dream, through frequencies planted into memory like seeds. They called them soul whispers, and Earth, our fragile, dreaming world, was one of many to receive them, not through telescopes, not through screens, but through us, through sudden thoughts that arrived in silence, through dreams that felt like they belonged to someone else, through longings that had no origin, only direction. It began subtly. A painter who saw stars not yet discovered, a child who spoke of cities beneath red moons, a scientist who dreamt of equations before ever learning the math. These were not accidents, they were remembrances. The Rigelians did not impose, they did not appear in fire or thunder. They planted ideas like soft footprints along the edge of human thought, and for those who listened, really listened, they felt it. A gentle nudge, a shimmer of meaning behind the ordinary. Sense that perhaps they had walked among crystalline tunnels long ago. Perhaps they had once breathed metallic air and had once helped build the seed ships long before this life began. And perhaps now, on Earth, their task was not so different. To remember, to grow, to rise, not in dominance, but in resonance, to plant stillness in a world overwhelmed by noise. And so, the message continues, not as a call to action, but as a reminder that the stars are not watching us, they are within us. That time is not chasing us. It is waiting for us to awaken, and that what you are, what we all are, is not small, not alone, but part of a memory far older than Earth. And tonight, as you drift into sleep, let your breath slow, let your body become light, as if your skin remembers starlight, as if, somewhere in your dreams, you are returning to a home you never knew you left. And if you feel something stir within you, something ancient and peaceful, that is not imagination. That is a Rigelian whisper, and it was always meant for you. Utro, drift into the gravity of stillness. So now, let everything fall away. Let the last images of Rigel dissolve into shadow. The tunnels, the breath of stone, the crystalline echoes, they no longer press against you. They float, like memory softened by time. You have journeyed far, not just across the stars, but inward, through timelines, folded in silence. And now there is nothing you need to do, no story to follow, no detail to hold, only the rhythm of your breath, only the cradle of this quiet moment. Let it rock you, Let it wrap around your thoughts like velvet spun from the night sky, if fragments remain. The hum of machines, the light from above, the whisper of ancient minerals. Let them fade gently into the soft gravity of dreams. You are safe. You are home. You are stardust, remembering itself through the language of silence. And now you may sleep softly, gently, until you drift beyond even the dream of dreaming. This has been a KhrronoNaph journey. Subscribe to drift through time, space, and forgotten truths. Until next time, sleep well, traveler.